Hello, how the tech are you? I don't have any funny tech jokes for intro jokes, so we're just going to skip that for now and let everybody know that this is our weekly tech show on Echoplex Media. We talk about tech stuff, tech news, some science stuff, a little bit of this and that here and there, but mostly in that area, science and tech. Good info. What I will be covering today, I am Historian Matt. I should probably introduce myself. I'm Historian Matt, and I usually cover news-related stuff. And I've got a little bit of news and, in a PSA. So what I'm going to cover is, first story I have is two large companies no one should talk about create a standards group for this thing that no one really cares about. Go into more detail in the actual story. And the second story is science, tech, and paint. Possibly the most Matt news ever. For those of you who don't know, I'm a painter, so that's why there's even some history in it. I didn't mention that, and I'm Historian Matt, so that works. And then finally, I got a PSA for everyone, just everyone in general. We'll go over that a little bit more later. But Dave, what do you got?
So this week, first they killed G-Talk in the Gmail. Now they're killing Hangouts. Hangouts will be gone in November. And and then we got some Elon news. After threatening to fire employees, it turns out there aren't desks for people at Tesla.
Of course.
So go ahead, take it away, Matt.
All right, I guess I should get started. So this two large companies no one should talk about create a standards group for this thing no one cares about. What are those two large companies? Well, the first one is Meta, formerly known as Facebook, and the second one is Microsoft. And I'm joking about that, except really, we shouldn't really be talking about these companies anymore. But they're teaming up to create a Metaverse standards group. You know, the Metaverse, right? It's like the next hot thing that like nobody is doing.
Second Life.
Yet. Yeah. Except Second Life is, I mean, it is the Metaverse, but it's not, right? It's not Facebook owned or Microsoft owned or whatever. So I don't think they include that. So what else? There are a number of other members of this standards group. Two other major notable ones are Adobe and NVIDIA. There's a whole list of others that are related. I think like IKEA is in on it. I don't know why they're interested in the Metaverse, but I think it has something to do with like, the Metaverse also covers, what is it? The IR, AR, whatever. Yeah, AR, augmented reality. Forgot about that. And so you're like, IKEA, they have you showing furniture in your house or something, and like, so they can sell more furniture.
I actually know something about that. So IKEA's got this thing that they're working on where you can... So you sort of get a few images of a room, and then they will use machine learning AI to like visibly remove your furniture from the room.
Yeah.
So that then you can put the new IKEA furniture in it. And so I think that might be why they're involved in this standards group, because they're already working on that particular thing. Yeah. And by working on it, I mean I tried it, and they're still working on it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of kinks to work out there. But what's notable about this group is, these kind of small companies known as Apple and Alphabet, also known as Google, are not actually members of this standards group yet. So, no big deal. Yeah, two of the biggest tech companies around are not involved, even though they have their own. Both companies have their own, like virtual reality devices and, Metaverse related stuff, augmented reality, particularly with Google and the Pixel phone.
Oh, you know what? You know what we love? You know what I love is competing standards. That's just what we're gonna. Yeah, it's just what we need here.
Well, the good news is they could join later if they really want. If that actually becomes a good thing, I don't entirely understand this, but the standards group is meant to, and I quote, foster the development of open standards for the metaverse. I do not know what that's supposed to mean, but sure, whatever. I personally don't think that this metaverse thing is going to go anywhere unless somebody comes up with like a completely open source, probably server for all this stuff and a client. Otherwise, they're all going to make their own like walled gardens, and you'll have to pay for the one that you're in, and that's it. And that severely reduces the usefulness.
My take on this too is I just don't think that the hardware is there yet. I mean, if it's going to be on a screen, it's going to be like kind of janky. If you have to put a headset on, that just sucks. Like it really, really sucks. And I think like something like this won't really take off until it's literally a hologram in my living room. Like I think that's like where it's going to need to be for the average person to be incredibly interested in it.
Yeah, I guess so. I have the old Oculus Rift headset. I haven't used it in like forever, but even that old one, they have much newer, updated versions. That old one was really amazing. Like they definitely got the virtual reality system down on that. And I'm told like the newer ones definitely like they don't have the wires and stuff the old one had coming out the back, because I had this almost as much as my hair coming out the back, of wires. For those who don't know, I have long hair here. And now the newer ones, like they're self-contained. I think they still connect to a computer. I'm not sure exactly how they work, but they're not physically connected by wires to the computers anymore.
So what happens to a lot of people in those headsets is it makes people woozy, almost like they're seasick. Or some people, It gives them like some kind of existential dread or anxiety.
Yeah. I know for the seasick one, motion sickness, the issue is if the program that they're using in the headset is not designed right, what ends up happening is the motion in the headset is different from what your body is actually feeling. So your vision is different from what you're feeling, and that sets off a response in your body that basically makes you think that you've been poisoned or something, I guess is what it is. And so it makes you want to throw up. You feel sick and want to throw up.
Right. And it doesn't happen to everybody. Some people's bodies just don't do that. You just notice.
Yeah. Some people's don't do it. You can also just basically train to get around it. Like it's not a permanent or kind of thing. If you do it enough, you kind of get used to it and it's fine. For some people, but some people it's just super bad.
And the other one, it's like harder to figure out why it happens to people. And when I tried one of the Oculus headsets, I had symptoms kind of similar to it, where
really
I wasn't like afraid of what was on the screen, right? It wasn't that. It was like I can't tell you why. I just felt anxious. Like I felt my like muscles tightening up and just kind of feelings of anxiety from the experience that didn't go away for, I don't know, maybe an hour afterward.
Whoa.
And like I said, I wasn't like it wasn't like I saw a scary movie and got afraid. It was different. It was completely like divorced from the content on the screen. And that happens to some people too. And I don't know what that's about. I'd be willing to bet that there are people looking into that one too.
Yeah. I haven't heard much about that before. I don't think that's as common as the other one. The other one, like almost everybody, the feeling sick, almost everybody experiences to some extent. Although some are more than others. Like they joked about it on Silicon Valley show back in the day, where the lead character put on the VR goggles and like it immediately threw up. Right. He was so sensitive to it. But that's all I got for that one.
So I think you're right about maybe not that it won't take off without like a completely open source server for it, but I think you're right about the need for some kind of open source project around this stuff. And
there may be. I didn't actually look it up.
And the other thing is it would end up being dominant, sort of like how open source dominated the web because of the Apache web server. It would need to be something like on that level of you are getting so much more value out of this system than you're getting out of other systems. And, that's one of our biases around here is towards open source and Linux, but also, I mean, what would the web look like without Apache? It was just, people are moved on to a lot of Nginx and stuff now, but like the web, was just revolutionized by Apache, because the one thing it let you do is let you run a bunch of different web servers on one physical piece of hardware. And the Microsoft stuff wasn't letting you do that. And that was, if you had a physical piece of hardware, you're like, well, I'm going to do this because I can, if we're running like a web server here and it's eating 3% of this computer's resources, and then I have to go build another server to run another web server, even though I have 97% of this computer left, that Apache web server looked great to that person.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll see if, I guess if anybody's viewing this on YouTube, I don't know if they're listening to it, but if you have any idea, know anything about open source projects like that, go ahead and comment it down in the comment section and let us know about it. And follow up. I'm actually kind of curious about it. So, you're bringing up the image of for the next story I have here. So the next story is science, tech, and paint, possibly the most Matt news. And again, as I said, I'm a artist. I do oil painting. So when this news story came up about the color Prussian blue, I was quite intrigued. So assuming you can see the image for those on YouTube, that's the actual color is shown there along with the example structure, atom structure of this particular type of color. But what happened recently is we found out that the color Prussian blue binds with gold and platinum group elements, which allows these elements to be recycled easier. This is a huge help to recyclers, especially when it comes to consumer electronics, because many consumer electronics include stuff, include gold and platinum and other pretty expensive elements, but in such small amounts that it's very hard to extract them and make any money out of them. But in fact, 1 ton of mobile phones, just average mobile phones, contains about 300 to 400 grams of gold, which is, worth it if you can extract it, but that's a pretty small amount. And it turns out that's actually more gold than is in the same amount of natural ore that could contain gold. I assume that's not like a vein of gold, which is quite a bit higher content. But get the idea. But so Prussian blue was found out that can do that. So what is Prussian blue? It was the first modern synthetic pigment. So here's my history for historian Matt name. But Prussian blue was first made by accident in Berlin by a paint maker named, and I'm probably going to say this name wrong somehow, but it's probably Johann Jacob, I don't know, Diesbach, around 1706, or Diesbach, I guess. Anyways, Diesbach was trying to make a red pigment, but the potash, however you want to pronounce it, he used was accidentally tainted with blood. Now, that sounds disgusting, but it was probably just like he had a little cut on his finger or some other like minor injury that put a couple drops of blood in the potash. But this caused the reaction he was trying to get to go crazy and create Prussian blue instead. Prussian blue is a pretty famous color. Once it was invented, it started getting used all over the place. There's a number of famous paintings, including the whole series of Pablo Picasso's blue period paintings contain it pretty extensively. And probably the most famous painting of all that contains Prussian blue is this one by this guy named Vincent van Gogh that you probably have heard about and probably seen, called The Starry Night. Fortunately, I don't have an image for that. That would have been a good one to display. But yeah, so Prussian blue is pretty common. It's also been used for doing other stuff. It helps with cleaning up radioactive material. And Prussian blue was used to remove cesium from the soil after the Fukushima disaster. The cesium, the radioactive cesium, I think was all in the soil around Fukushima, the nuclear power plant that blew up there. So they knew that Prussian blue could be helpful. They knew it helped in this case, and there's some other cases where they're using it to extract certain types of metals. But the process works with certain metals because what happens is the iron ions that are in this kind of like jungle gym like structure that makes up Prussian blue get replaced by these metals that they're trying to extract, and that sort of like absorbs these metals like a sponge, and then from there you can extract them from the Prussian blue itself. So that was pretty cool. We got a new way of recycling, and this could really help in a lot of ways. Other methods of recycling, particularly like cell phones and consumer electronics, include like smelting and stuff, which is very damaging to the environment. And this is much better for the environment anyways. I don't know if it's 100%, but definitely a better way of doing it. And it makes it actually monetarily efficient to do so. Any comments?
Yeah, I know a few people who do recycling, like e-waste, and none of them are brave enough to try to actually do the smelting or any of that because of regulation around it, and just overall like care for their employees and not wanting their employees in a space where the actual breakdown of the material is happening. And so if this is, I don't know anything about this. I know about the Starry Night painting, and I think it's actually pretty cool that a pigment that was invented so long ago has this potential to kind of clean up a dirty industry or make a dirty industry like slightly more efficient. It's just kind of, you never know, like if you discover or invent something, you just never know what its future uses might be, like long after you're dead. So, So hooray science and hooray paint.
Right. I guess I should mention for people who are listening in, the Prussian blue is kind of it's a blue with a slight green tint to it. It has a pretty strong color. So oftentimes you'll see it, they mix it a little bit with white because if it's the pure pigment, it's pretty dark blue, and you don't really see it very clearly. So oftentimes you'll see it either mixed in with white or it's used in watercolor. So maybe painted thinly, and you'll see a little more clearly a lighter version of the blue. But it's a nice color. I actually don't think I use it much in my own painting, but it's pretty popular. All right, moving on to my final story, which is not as much a story as it is a PSA. And hopefully Dave will help me on this one a bit, especially if I'm missing anything. But basically, here's the deal. Overturning of Roe versus Wade has a lot of people worried about online tracking being used against them when seeking certain medical treatment, let's say. And I decided that we should help people out, give them some suggestions on what to do to avoid being tracked online as best as possible. None of these are 100%. Some of them still have a few issues, and I think we'll talk about them a little bit. And there's ways of tracking you offline as well that you'll have to handle on your own. But we're a tech show, so we're kind of in a good position to talk about tracking on the internet, I think. So the first one I got here is, well, the issue people were talking about was governments tracking your IP address. And the very obvious way to keep that from happening is using a VPN. VPN is a virtual private network. There's a lot of commercial VPNs out there. There are many uses for them, and it's not for evading laws, but definitely for helping with privacy and, watching certain shows on Netflix that you can't get in your current country is a big one. But what they do is you basically set up your computer to connect to the VPN server, and it connects with an encrypted connection. And then from wherever the VPN server is hosted, the VPN connects out to the actual website you want to connect to. So that kind of masks your IP address and doesn't allow anybody to like snoop in, at least from you to the VPN. Right.
So
there's
something real important about a VPN. Make sure you use a VPN that dumps the logs.
Yeah, I was going to mention something like that. You want to definitely have them dump the logs so law enforcement can't come in later, or even a hacker come in later and figure out who's connecting to this VPN. Also, you may want to, and you'll have to really look into this before doing it, but maybe get a VPN in another country that allows you to do some of those sort of things so they can't be subpoenaed at all. Do you have any comments on that, Dave? It looked like you were going to say something.
Just be like really cautious of when you see a YouTube video and the person's sponsored by a VPN, because a lot of times those aren't going to be the best VPNs. Some of those are perfectly fine though. A lot of these VPNs will just have independent audits.
Yeah.
And if you trust the independent auditor, you could go by that information. I don't have a VPN. I recommend. I generally don't use one because I don't have a need for one. But do your homework. And if you're not a technical person, there are just a ton of security websites, like InfoSec websites out there.
Yeah, I hate to say do your own research, but in this case, I don't think we want to recommend any specific VPN, but please do your own research. And we'll talk about better ways of doing research as well. But before that, if you're going to get any sort of medical treatment, you should think about maybe turning off your cell phone. And pretty much like any medical treatment, as I thought more about this, because there are certain large companies that sell lots of cell phones that track everything you do and everywhere you go while you have that phone. And they will use that information to, mostly they use it for sending ads, but because they have that stuff tracked, they can forward it to law enforcement as well. I suggest either turning off your cell phone. That's suggested by a lot of people, but also if you can live with it, it may be better to just leave your cell phone at home and leave it on, because then it just looks like you're at home.
And if you're like hyper paranoid about like license plate scanners, there's a reason that a lot of spies like public transportation.
Yeah. Hopefully that's available in your location. That's not available everywhere. Like it's not particularly good where I'm at.
Right, of course,
or at least not to certain locations. But yeah, think about that sort of stuff. Also, think about when you're using search engines, looking for stuff on the internet, you probably want to use something like a safe search engine like DuckDuckGo, and also probably a privacy browser or private browser like the Brave browser. Firefox also has a private browser version thing. I forget what they call it, like safe browsing or something. I don't remember what they call it on Firefox.
Oh yeah, I don't recall. I'm not a Firefox.
I forgot to look that up. And that can keep stuff from they put stuff in the browser to keep other websites from tracking you. And I wanted to add this little anecdote because it's directly related to the search engine stuff. This person, Letice Fisher, in 2018 was indicted in Mississippi on the charge of second-degree murder after giving birth to a stillborn baby. Her defense lawyers were claiming that it was a stillborn baby, but prosecutors actually looked into Fisher's search history and found that she searched for abortion pills, and they used that against her because that was illegal at the time in Mississippi. So yeah, be very careful with your search. They can go back and subpoena that sort of stuff and look at your search history. Any other comments? Any other suggestions, Dave, on that one? I feel like that's one you'd have some other suggestions for.
Maybe just don't search that stuff. Don't if you find yourself pregnant, don't search any of that stuff.
Yeah, I would say that too, but I feel like for some people that they don't have any other options for finding the info.
Yeah. Also, public libraries are a good place to use a computer if you want to search for things and not have anybody know it was you searching for them. Depending on the public library, some of them may attach it to your library card, and you may not want to do that.
Right. That's a good point. What else? I think the EFF suggested using encrypted messaging services like Signal. There's a number of encrypted messaging services. So that's just like sending, instant messages back and forth. Signal will encrypt end-to-end encryption that keeps anybody from being able to, and I think including Signal is keep them from reading your messages. So if you're asking somebody else that you know about it, that's a safer way of doing it.
And just real quick on that, if somebody gets access to your phone, it's not going to matter that you're using an encrypted message service, because they can just open that encrypted message service and read your messages. So one another thing that you shouldn't use the biometric stuff on your phone.
Right.
A passcode, or if you're, I guess, lazy, Android has the little pattern, but make sure the pattern is sufficiently complicated that somebody couldn't just look at you across the room unlocking your phone and figure out what your pattern is.
Yeah. Good point. And then in a similar vein, for email, make sure you use a secure email service. I have Proton Mail here as an example. There are, I think, a few other email services that are secure. And I think somebody else who's usually on the show is working on something like that.
Yeah, and just really quick again, if somebody can own your device, it's not going to matter that you're using a secure email service, because you're going to be probably logged into it. So it's another case where making sure your devices are secure is fairly important.
Right.
Or if you're using something like Proton Mail, I guess use the web interface only and log out every time you use it, and don't have it save your password in any of your password managers or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. And that's all I got. But yeah, just be careful on the internet. It seems like more and more you want to do stuff to enhance your privacy on the internet just because of stupid stuff that's coming up.
Yep, that's true. I guess now it's my turn. I got two stories this week. Yep. One of them's on the lighter side. Last week we talked about, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, we talked about how they killed Gtalk. That was the chat that just kind of existed on the left side of your Gmail, which so
we decided that was what that was called.
Yeah, it's Gtalk. So they're killing that, or that's already dead. And next they're killing Hangouts in November, and they're going to put I don't know, they're calling it chat that they're sending everyone to.
Well, they had something called Hangouts Chat, and I actually still use that with people who, I know that still work at Google. But it was really confusing because there was Hangouts, which was kind of the video service thing, and then there's Hangout Chats, which is the Slack competitor, I think.
Yeah, and I don't know where they're sending everyone to. They just said they're sending everybody to chat, and the image that it showed for chat just kind of looked like the image you would get for like your SMS messenger.
Oh, okay.
But it's like a running gag about Google, how like they're just this close to nailing down messaging.
Yeah.
It's funny because they're like this big company that does a lot of things well. Yet this thing that is, I mean, relatively simple in the grand scheme of things, they've just never been able to nail down something.
Right. And they, could have bought a chat service a while ago and probably done a lot better.
Right. From the very drop, they could have bought anything basically and figured it out. And, I don't know what it is. They've killed, I don't even know how many chat services. And Hangouts was like integrated into Google Plus, and it looked like maybe that was going to go somewhere, but then they didn't really attend to Google Plus very well, which made me kind of sad. I kind of really liked Google Plus.
Really?
Yeah.
They killed it because not enough people were using it.
Yeah.
And by not enough, they mean like not a billion people, right?
Well, I didn't really use it like Facebook, right? I just used it as a news reader because it was like on an Android phone, it was beautiful. It looked great. But yeah, they're just, I don't know. Maybe they need to stop trying to nail down this chat thing because they're bad at it.
Well, is this like part of doing that? Like they're culling some of their other chat type services and.
Oh, I'm as sure as I can be. They're going to roll out a new one.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe they'll just nail. I don't know. They should have bought Discord or no. I'm glad they didn't buy Discord actually, but.
Yeah.
But yeah, they could have done anything, but they just keep killing these things. I don't think anybody was using the Hangouts video service anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. We used it when I was working at Google internally. We used it all the time for doing, teleconferencing type stuff, which you use all the time at Google.
We were using it because it was integrated into voice. And so we could take DMs via Hangouts and get calls via voice from the same basically browser window during the show, and that was pretty convenient. But then they unintegrated it with Google Voice, and they're like, "Here's the new Google Voice," and I was like, "This looks terrible." But at least Google Voice is still there. They're probably never going to kill that because I think a lot of people rely on that for all kinds of different things. But yeah, they're never going to nail down messaging, and I don't know, maybe they should give up.
Maybe.
Or maybe they'll bring back Gtalk and just your messenger will just be on the left side of your Gmail again.
Which was like the best version they ever did.
Right. Just to send a quick message if you were already emailing somebody that had a Google account, that was the best because you're like, wait a minute, we're emailing back and forth. You're like, let me just DM you real quick instead.
Yeah. And you can see they're online or not,
Right.
Your friends.
And it was just like, it was perfect because it integrated perfectly with Gmail. So of course they killed it.
Yeah.
But maybe they'll bring it back and call it something new and it'll work less good and be more intrusive and there'll be ads. Who knows? But Google, get your messaging game together or get out the game because it's been embarrassing for you. It's my phone thought I was talking to it there for a second, by the way. It was like, excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. I would like a word.
Sorry to embarrass you.
So on the less light side, but still kind of funny, after threatening to fire remote employees, it turns out there just aren't enough desks for the people coming back to Tesla to work. Obviously, it's not the assembly line people; it's the administrative people, the software people, the office staff. There's also
all the
people,
white collar people.
Yeah, people are also reporting problems with their internet connectivity at work.
So. How did that happen? Like, did they hire more people? I know they were like talking about firing a number of people. Did they lose space or something? Or
that's
no idea.
That's a good question. They may have it may have been a thing where some people were already working remotely, like before the pandemic or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And then Elon just, on a whim was like, well, I don't want people working remotely anymore for this, that, or the other reason. And now everybody's trying to come back into work. And it's just really funny. I think it's very funny because it's like, it just shows that this guy like kind of doesn't have any business managing things.
Yeah.
He wasn't like, hey, everybody's coming back. Is there someone who works for me who I can talk to make sure that we have everything we need for everyone to come back?
Right. Maybe he should talk to HR or facilities or something that handles that sort of thing. Talk to them, like maybe ask them if this is a good idea or, stagger people coming back or something, that sort of thing. I know certain other companies are not bringing everybody back at once and going full time in the office, but rather having people maybe work half a week and staggering who's in the office at any given time.
Yeah, it's pretty wild that after everybody was at home for like 2 years, that nobody would say, "Hey, are we ready for this? Is everything set up? Are we prepared?" It's just wild to me that wouldn't be the first concern. Because if people were out of the office for a while, I mean, the computers there are old. Do people need new computers? How are the internet devices doing? Do we need to replace some of the internet devices because they've been sitting here off or maybe left on the whole time, knowing how some companies operate? And it seems like none of those questions were asked, and it just seems silly. Like "Are we ready for this?" doesn't seem like a big question that you have to be like a smart person really to ask. But I just feel sorry for the people that work there, because they were like forced to go back to work. Now they didn't have a desk, some of them.
Yeah.
And like, then who do they complain to? Because if they complain too much, they probably get fired.
Yep.
Like, what? I don't know, whatever. Like, maybe this will be people have said this a lot. Maybe this will be the last straw for like Elon, where he realizes that he's not some kind of god and that he should listen to some other people and check with relevant subject matter experts inside of his own company before he makes decisions.
I feel like that's not going to happen.
No, he's probably going to fire the people that he should have asked.
Yeah, probably.
He's going to be like, well, the facilities manager didn't make sure everybody had desks. And then, then the facilities manager is like, you didn't even talk to me about this. You're fired. You're out of here.
We probably could have worked something out, but.
And the other thing is that this story could be overblown. Like a lot of these tech journalists and these outlets, like this story is from The Verge. They go after Elon a lot. So this could be like way overblown, but I still think it's funny.
True.
Because
Elon deserves it.
he deserves it.
I feel kind of bad because I don't really like Elon Musk, but do like the Tesla cars, even though they're, overpriced, but they're good cars otherwise.
Well, that overpriced thing may start to change because there's really good competition entering that market.
Yeah. Well, particularly the low end cars, the cheaper cars, there's a lot of people predicting that next year we're going to see a price war on the low end electric cars. So keep an eye out there because there's a lot of low end electric cars coming out.
And in that mid range right now, that Ford Mustang Mach-E is just killing it. Everybody's saying that's the best electric car in that price range.
Yeah. Yeah. Also the F-150 Lightning, you can't, like, I would say people love it, but people can't get a hold of it. It's just sold out forever.
Well, and there's some supply chain issues are probably making it hard to get them out as quickly as possibly Ford would like. But yeah, it's, they had a big head start, but now these companies that have hundreds of years manufacturing behind them are coming, and they're coming for Tesla, and they're gonna do a great job. I mean, I'm just telling you, as soon as that all electric Honda Civic hits, it's over.
Yeah, probably.
That is the most popular car. The Civic and the Corolla are such popular cars, and as soon as we get all electric versions of those that look no different than the kind of stylish gas versions of them, those are going to be like the top selling electric cars, and it's going to be tough times for Tesla. And I would wager that when Honda's employees went back to the office, they had desks.
I bet you are right.
They're a legacy company that kind of knows how to have employees and how to treat their staff and how to like run an office and run a company. So yeah, in the end, these other companies are all coming for Tesla, and they're going to build, I think we're going to be seeing higher quality cars than the Teslas for lower prices.
I believe you.
And these companies also know better than to lie to their customers and promise them stuff that's never that they cannot accomplish. They have just a long history of dealing with customers, and only a couple times have they promised something and not delivered it. So we'll keep an eye on that over the next couple of years. Tesla had a pretty big head start, but you know, when Ford and Honda are coming for you,
yeah, better be ready.
You better be ready when Ford and Honda are coming for you. And I bet the people at Ford have desks too. I bet the Wi-Fi works at Ford too.
That's right.
So I guess that's the show. Thanks, Matt, for this week. And thanks for joining me last night. Last night's show was a little starty-stoppy just by its nature because of the way the clips were. We do a show together on Sundays called The Plex. That's a news rundown if you're interested in such a thing. And check out all of our shows, echoplexmedia.com, or just search for Echoplex Media on the podcatcher you use. Also, make sure you're following How the Tech Are You on YouTube. We're also posting it to the Echoplex Media Odyssey channel, but that's primarily a free archival service for us at this point.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.